You're watching Aurora 8, proud to be serving Aurora, Colorado, and all America City.
Good evening and welcome to the 2013 Candidates Forum featuring candidates for the Aurora City Council. I'm Kevin Hogan. I'm the president of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, and it's our pleasure, along with the Aurora Businesswomen, the Aurora Sentinel, the League of Women Voters, and the Aurora Election Commission, to host this and sponsor tonight's forum. There are many critical issues facing our community, and we believe that these forums present the perfect opportunity for voters to see the candidates and hear the different perspectives on all the issues. We hope that by helping to inform voters, they can make the best choices in selecting the men and women to sit on the Aurora City Council. The decisions they make will affect our community for years to come. Now I'd like to turn this forum over to this evening's moderator from the Aurora Businesswomen, Debbie Gilliard. Debbie?
Thank you so much, Kevin. This forum is just one of 4 that our organizations are sponsoring this election season, and they all feature the candidates running for Aurora City Council. In this session, we are featuring the candidates running for the Ward 2 Council position. This format for tonight's forum will include questions that I will ask on behalf of the sponsors, as well as questions from the news team at the Aurora Sentinel. During this forum, that news team includes Aaron Cole, who is managing editor for the Sentinel, and Dave Perry, the editor of the Aurora Sentinel. We know they have lots of great questions for our candidates this evening, and we thank them for joining us. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing the 2 candidates running for the Ward 2 Council seat. Bernard Celestin is a U.S. Army veteran who hails from Haiti and has lived in Liberia and New York. He has lived in Ward 2 for 20 years. He has served on Aurora's Civil Service Commission since 2008. Prior to that, he spent 8 years as a Human Relations Commissioner, a member of the Blue Ribbon Panel, and a member of the Key Community Response Team. He spent 8 years as a supervisor for the Department of Homeland Security at Denver International Airport. Rennie Peterson is a 3rd-generation Coloradoan. She has served as an Aurora City Council member for Ward 2 from 2005 until 2013. Previously, she was a family advocate for Aurora Public Schools and a community networker for the Crawford Family Resource Center. She is the founder of the Aurora Public Schools Wish List Project that provides school supplies that the schools cannot afford. She is married and has 2 sons, ages 22 and 19. These are our 2 candidates for Ward 2. Before we begin with opening statements, I would like to let our candidates know how the questions will proceed this evening. I will be asking questions to all candidates on behalf of the sponsors, and the candidates, each of you, will have 1 minute to respond. Candidates will also be receiving questions from our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel. Once again, you will have up to 1 minute to respond. But additionally, for the media questions, candidates will have opportunity for 30-second rebuttals, or the media may be asking follow-up questions for you. I would like to remind our candidates to pay close attention to our timekeepers this evening. They will be timing your opening and closing statements, the answers to your questions, and your rebuttals. They will signal when there are 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when your time is up. And now we will begin with our 1-minute opening statements from each of our candidates. Bernard Celestin will begin this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening to the residents of Ward 2. My name is Bernard Celestin. I am running for City Council Ward 2. I've been living in Ward 2, as mentioned, for the last 20 years. This coming November, I'll be celebrating my 28th anniversary, married to Robin, my lovely wife. We've got 2 children, Pierre, who is currently serving in the Air Force, and Imani. I've got a daughter from a previous marriage, Natasha, who lives in Texas. I'm running because I really feel that some transparency needs to be placed on council. And one of the first function that I will do, should I be elected, is to not only have the monthly meetings here in council chambers, but I will also be going out to the community and have several community-based meetings to make sure the community is well informed and engaged in all the events going on within the ward. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Rennie Peterson.
Hi, I'm Renee Peterson, and first of all, I want to thank the voters for supporting me over the past 8 years. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have served you as your representative. And I'd like to just let you know I'm a third-generation native. I grew up in Aurora. My father was career service Air Force, my husband's Air Force. I'll be having my 40th year class year reunion for Hinckley this month. I attended Aurora Public Schools, and so I'm just an Aurora kid, so thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We will begin with our questions now, and I will be asking the very first question. So here you go. Many citizens have expressed concerns about the use of photo red light cameras. What is your perspective on the use of the cameras, and what is your perspective on what some consider this to be an intrusive and simply a money-making technology being used by the city? We will begin our answers tonight with Rennie Peterson.
Well, I consider the red light photo camera as an intrusion on the people, and I also think it's more Big Brother. And you know what the problem is now is that the city's become dependent on funding, and part of that funding that is extreme problem is that it's for aid agencies. When we switched over from aid agencies, we changed to a program where a portion of fines goes out to serve the nonprofits, organizations, and a lot of that funding comes from that.
Thank you. Bernard Celestin.
Well, I feel that I support the cameras for the simple fact that not only do they reduce the accidents at certain intersections, but it will also, you could tell the people that live within the neighborhood because they respect those lights because they know they're there. But if you even are a stranger to the area, you have to have respect for intersections. And once you do receive a fine, you are allowed to go online and review why you received that ticket. And if you don't disagree with it, go to court and fight for it. But keep in mind, that money does not just go to waste. It goes to serve some of the nonprofits like Comitis Crisis Center or the Aurora Mental Health Center to assist our citizens. So it is not Big Brother. It is just someone reminding you that you did something that is wrong and you should correct your driving skills.
Thank you, candidates. I'll have more questions for you a bit later, but right now we will move to some questions from our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel. Just a reminder, you will have 1 minute to answer, and additionally, you will be afforded a 30-second rebuttal time. We will begin our media questions this evening with the Aurora Sentinel editor, Dave Perry.
Thanks. This is for both the candidates here. In talking with some of my colleagues about the metro area, their impression of Aurora is that this is the city of no, or a bunch of fun crushers when it comes to being able to do things on your own private property. Specifically, that this is one of the cities where you can't have chickens or backyard chickens and goats and things like that. And even Denver has relented on that, and it's become very popular. I wonder how each of you feel about starting with chickens or some of the other things that the city has said no about. Rini, why don't you start?
Okay, actually, this is coming to a policy committee next month to review what our take will be on chickens. Personally, I don't have a problem with the chickens. I would support it. But I didn't know that Denver allowed goats, so that's a new one.
Pygmy goats.
You know, that might be more concerning to me if folks want goats, but I would support the chickens.
Okay. Bernard?
Likewise, I would support people having chickens in their backyard as long as it's properly maintained, it doesn't become a hazard to the neighbors, and they're well fenced and caged. That if it's your property, as long as what you're doing is not something that is unsafe to the neighbors, that should be within your right.
Okay, we'll push this just a little further, and I was wondering about street sales of things like ice cream and even tamales. The helado man in a lot of neighborhoods is very popular in Denver, and I know in this particular ward, there's a lot of Hispanic residents who miss the ability to eat off of a food truck or a street vendor, something like that. Rini, I wonder how you feel about relenting on that and letting it back in the city.
Well, Dave, I've got to tell you, I think that what we need to do is do a little research on that to get some background about how other cities are dealing with that. And recently, visiting Portland, I'm amazed of how many food trucks there are and how wonderful the food is from those food trucks. And so actually, they celebrate that in Portland. I mean, everywhere you go, businesses will tell you best place to eat is off those food trucks.
Okay, Bernard, you want to say something about that real quick?
Actually, it's a matter of education. I believe that, you know, you have countries, and you mentioned Ward 2 in particular, that in their culture, that's a common item to have ice cream truck for the kids during the summertime and their food truck. And all we have to do is to make sure the people that are the vendors of those items are doing things within the law, that what they're doing is pure hygiene, and they're not becoming a hazard to traffic. They're not becoming a safety hazard for kids running across the street to get the ice cream and possibly get hit by a car. So it becomes a matter of education. As long as what they're doing, they are aware of the rules and follow the rules and have safety features in place, I am all for bringing cultures to Aurora. Not to compare Aurora with any other city. Forgive the biasness, because we are the best. They need to do what we do here in Aurora.
Thank you. And now a question from Aaron Cole, Managing Editor with the Aurora Sentinel.
Thanks. I'd like to ask about light rail, specifically light rail parking. As light rail gets built out, especially in Aurora, the city might be strapped for parking, especially around Anschutz, considering that maybe about 40,000 employees will be traveling there every day, whether it be via public transit or by cars. What would you suggest that the city do in the future? And does the city play a role in providing more parking to alleviate some stragglers that might be parking in the neighborhoods?
Bernard, would you like to answer this one first?
Thank you. It's a great question. I believe that the city may have a certain role to play in making sure people have adequate parking spaces, but RTD is more than willing, as long as the land is available, to have parking. Where I do believe that it's been exaggerated a little bit in specific about Anschutz. All we have to do is to let the people know that between 9 Mile and Anschutz, there are going to be numerous park and ride stops. Each will come with a certain number of parking. And in addition, right down the street via Peoria from the Fitzsimmons stop, you're going to have a very large parking ride at Smith Road. So the people will have ample amount of places to park their cars. Also keeping in mind that the hospitals will have shuttles for their employees so that they don't really need to drive and park, although I've noticed several new parking spots been built on hospital grounds already. So that really shouldn't be a problem. Thank you.
Rennie?
Actually, history has shown us that RTD never puts enough parking into their planning. And, it's a shame, I mean, when they work up these projects that they don't consider the ramifications of lack of parking to their users. However, I don't really feel that it's the city of Aurora's responsibility to pay for parking for RTD. But I don't see how we get out of it. If we don't make their project better, they're not going to, and so the project in the future is not going to work well. I'm a little upset with the RTD. I think RTD shouldn't be putting projects forward that they know in the future are not going to be suited to suit the needs of the people.
Okay. I do have a follow-up
Excellent.
with Mr. Selson. First, I want to use for the example 9 Mile versus Dayton.
Yes.
9 Mile is consistently packed around 7 a.m., whereas Dayton sometimes isn't, and that's a fairly long walk for people getting to that station from that parking lot to that. Do you think a shuttle up at Anschutz to shuttle employees is a viable solution if there is parking problems and if there is a lot that is not adequate for the number of employees and students that might be traveling to that campus?
A shuttle will be more than adequate. When the two that you've mentioned, Dayton and 9 Mile, the problem is, again, either proper signage or lack thereof, or just simply educating people that although 9 Mile may be crowded early, and part of it are airport employees and other commuters going downtown, Dayton is just about a 2-3 minute drive down 225 and they're there. So it's just a matter of letting people know you do have option. This is not the only park and ride in town.
Okay, and then can I follow up with Rini real quick?
Yes, please.
Rini, you said that there's a problem and that RTD is responsible to fix it, and the city might be put into a hard spot, but is there another answer? Can the city lobby? Can the city do something with the state? What would you say?
It's basically either the city takes the citizens' funding and uses it to add parking, which we're planning to do. That's one of the line items with one-time money is for a $6 million parking garage at the Isle of Station, simply because the city realizes that for this to work in the future, they're going to have that parking garage. Now, I'm not for that. I'm not for it. I understand why it needs to be put there, but the reason I'm not for it is if the voters voted against that parking garage when we asked for the transportation bill, they voted against it. So I don't feel right about voting for it now, even though I realize that that's what needs to be done.
Thank you, candidates. And now another question from Dave Perry.
Let's stay with something related there. You're talking about the $6 million that the city asked voters for or a $6 million project that they wouldn't even had to have paid at the time for that. Right now, the city's looking at a $26 million expenditure for police and fire training center. And it's some money that the city was able to get through what looks like a budget surplus. Is that the priority for capital expenditures for the city right now, is to spend that kind of money there? Or should the city revisit this and look at a larger campaign, possibly use that money or use it for something else like parking or recreation centers? Bernard, do you want to start with that?
No, I do not. I believe the city right now is in dire need of a new police and fire training center. The spaces that they currently use are more than 50-some years old, and they need more space. We've got the #1 police and fire department within the state, if not the region, and they need better, newer, more equipped places to train new recruits. And keep in mind, right now, there are several training sessions that are being done outside of the city that we pay someone else to use their facility because we don't have one. And the reverse may occur. When we do build one of our own, we will be able to then charge other cities to come to our facility for training, and thus making it a money-making project for the city itself. But our police department and fire department, in order to remain number one and continually receive their accreditation, they need new training facilities. I support that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Rini?
The $26 million in one-time funding, I think that we need to carefully weigh what needs to be done with that funding, and I would hope that we would save some of that for a rainy day fund rather than spend it all. There's no doubt I would support the fire training facility in that Denver is asking us to give them $3.2 million to fix their current training facility. And why would we not spend $11 million to build our own rather than the 3.2 given to Denver?
So you're saying that you do not want to spend that money right away without researching it more or looking at other options, Rini? Or?
Well, I'm saying I support funding the new fire training facility at $11 million, and the other items that are up in question, I will have to weigh and measure those as we come into our budget session on Saturday.
Okay.
I would hope we save some of that funding.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernard, did you have any additional comments on this topic?
My concern would be if you could build both places at one time, keeping both departments running full steam ahead, why would you support one and overlook the other? That doesn't really make sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Once more, a question from Aaron Cole.
Thanks. I guess I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about recreational marijuana, specifically consumers and shops, pot shops. What's your take on Amendment 64, and would you support recreational marijuana within your ward if the city comes a year later and says we've got to start look at licensing these businesses? I guess, Rainey, let's start with you.
Well, there's a committee working on it right now, and my take on it is that the voters have voted for the marijuana, and so at this point, I think allowing it in the warehouse district and limiting it to a few shops where it's away from businesses, homes, and schools would be the best way to handle it. But of course, I'm going to have to hear from the committee and what they've come up with before I have a true decision.
Bernard?
Thank you. Pandora's box is open when it comes to marijuana, and it will never be closed again. So it was voted, approved by the people. What I would like to see is, in addition to all the money that is expected to be raised once we figure out how to put a 25% tax on marijuana, 15% of which will go to is building schools and you know, we're talking lots of millions of dollars, but no one have really put our kids first, and not necessarily just the kids, but our youth graduating from school and about to enter the work market, that it's easy to just light a marijuana cigarette and get yourself high if that's what you want to do. But keep in mind, you are closing doors for federal jobs, for a lot of private jobs. There are a lot of great jobs out there that you may set yourself on random drug testing or even entry-level testing that you will not be able to obtain those jobs simply because of marijuana. So we should, Aurora will have marijuana. We just need to make sure that we educate our young people so that they can be responsible adults. Thank you.
Okay. Related to that, such as jobs, there are things that, besides recreational marijuana shops, that Amendment 64 had provisions for, such as cultivation facilities, industrial hemp, and whatnot. That could be something that the city could license right now. and start right now if they really wanted to? Would you support other types of marijuana-related businesses within Ward 2? And even if it meant jobs, even if it meant more revenue coming into the city? Rainey, do you want to start?
You know, I don't think we're going to get that much revenue after the state is done with theirs. You know, it's a small a portion of funding, and one of the things that concerns me is that the amount of police that it's going to take to support that. So I think, you know, I would really like to have more weighing and measuring done by the committee and their response before I make a decision of what we would allow.
Bernard?
Quite frankly, there isn't any amount of revenue that would be more important to me than one of our young people losing their job and who knows what that may lead to, breaking up a family, getting arrested since it's still a federal crime. You know, I wouldn't compare the two, and I would not put money in front of any one of the residents of Ward 2 or anybody else in our city for that matter. I do believe we need to start by educating the citizens as to the ramifications of having marijuana in our city, and if it has to come to make sure it is properly regulated, and if money has to come from it, that's just a second thought as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, candidates. We will return to press questions in just a few minutes, but I will be asking the next question of you. Here's the question. Do you feel the City Council should take any actions to limit the reach and authority of the Civil Service Commission? We will begin our answers with Bernard, please.
Thank you. That's a great question concerning I'm a Civil Service Commissioner. What the commission does really has nothing to do with what everyone has been hearing about as far as a monitor position. The primary function of civil service is to administer the application and hiring process for police and firefighters. When I was brought on the commission, it was because the city had gone through 10 years of not hiring any minority on either department. And with strong, proactive, collaborative work with other commissioners, we now have our first African-American female firefighter and have increased the number of minorities on both departments by quite a bit. So, and earlier this year, because of our great work, we've done what hasn't been done in probably the United States period, and that's to have the Justice Department drop a lawsuit that could have really sent our city into turmoil, costing millions of dollars and morale issues in both departments. So I'm out of time. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Rennie?
Well, you know, there needs to be checks and bounds, and I don't believe the council should be involved with the Civil Services Commission. And I think that checks need to be put in place so the good old boy system doesn't prevail. And so the civil service is a necessity. And when my opponent talks about the differences that have been made, actually, when the JOC came up against us, actually, I appointed him. He was my choice for an appointment for his position.
Thank you.
And I think he forgot that, but I think that it's necessary to have the civil service in place.
Thank you, candidates. We will now return to some questions from our media representatives. We will begin with Dave Perry.
Thanks. Mayor Hogan has started a conversation among the city council regarding police oversight, the issue of creating a panel or a position that would take a look at the police chief and the police department and reviewing or possibly overriding some of the decisions that that department makes. And I wondered how each of you felt about that, whether or not the Mayor Hogan's position right now is that there should be an advisory panel or some type of advisory position to give advice to the city. Others have said that that's not going far enough, that there needs to be some kind of an oversight committee that can actually override a decision on police matters. Rini, do you want to start with that?
I'm not for making any changes, Dave. I think do we just leave the civil service in place as it has been. I'm not for an oversight committee. I'm not for a one-man person to come on board. I'm really for having checks and bounds in place and making sure that we have a group of citizens on the civil service that helps the Good Old Boys Club from forming. And we don't want people just being, we don't want a popularity sort of thing going on with the chief of what officers are reprimanded and which ones aren't, and to what limit they are reprimanded.
First of all, I think it should be clearly understood that what the mayor is speaking of in having a monitor has nothing to do with civil service. You know, this is a person or a committee that would simply be there to inform the public, if you will, as to what is going on and within the process of any particular officer that may be going through that process. They are not there to tell the police chief how to do his job. They will not be standing over his shoulders to tell him what punishment that person deserves or not. That would not be within their right. They will simply monitor the process and inform the chief what they feel that they would recommend as punishment and such. It is not a final word that the chief has to do that. I was fortunate to be one of the members of the original review board, and we did that successfully until the city brought it into a hearing, and that caused the end of the board.
Given that, do you support what the mayor is trying to suggest at this point, or do you think that it should go further?
I fully support what the mayor is trying to do because, again, it's a proactive way of keeping our city the best city that it can be. We cannot afford to wait until things happen and react to it. Reacting to anything means failure in my book. If we proactively let the citizens know that there is someone here to make sure that the process is being done fairly, that has nothing at all to do with civil service and the works of civil service, simply to monitor the process, and that will be good enough.
Rini, I want to give you one more shot at that. Do you agree with that, that there is no need for a monitor or any kind of oversight for the police department?
Dave, I just feel like why add another layer of government? The Civil Service Commission's job is to make sure that the chief is doling out the right punishments.
Okay.
That's their job.
Thank you. And now a question from Aurora Sentinel Managing Editor, Aaron Cole.
Thanks. I'd like to switch gears just a little bit, talk about blight and blight specifically in your ward. I know that blight sometimes is used as a development incentive and a development tool. Is that a good thing? And how do you feel about the what's going on there with along, I believe it's Smith Road? Was it Smith? Sorry, maybe I got that wrong. Isn't okay.
Which area are you referring to?
Is it Northwest Corridor? Isn't there a, okay. Let's talk about Horizon Uptown and that whole process. Rini, let's start with you.
Horizon Uptown?
Right. Blight is a development. Blight is a tool for
Well,
incentivizing development.
I think, you know, if you look back and you see my voting record, I have voted no on most often when they've wanted to call something blight. And I understand why they do. It's because there's very little tools in place for urban development to take a hold. So, you know, you almost have to blight something to get in that toolbox. And that's why it happens over and over again. But if you look at my voting record, I'm not for voting for blight.
Okay.
this is an area that I feel, it depends, first of all, on specific square land that, you may be referring to or not. But if an area has to be blighted in order to be built upon, if it's done properly and will enhance the rest of the community, I would support that, because Ward 2 really is the only ward that has the most land for expansion. And with the amount of people moving into the state and the city each and every year, we have to, once again, be proactive and make sure they have good, affordable places to live, respectable places, places that would not only enhance the community, but enhance the city as a whole. So again, depend on which area you're referring to, I would be in favor of that.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question.
Please.
And Rini, I'm firmly aware of your voting record on incentives for businesses. Given that, though, there are municipalities that do incentivize for businesses, for small business development and large business development. For Aurora to stay competitive, don't you think it would be necessary that Aurora incentivizes some development within its city?
I'm not against all incentives. If the incentive truly is going to make the area better and it's going to bring well-paid jobs and it's going to spark growth and spark the economy, there's a lot of weighing and measuring to do. What I don't like is the fact that we're put in a position that we have to development keeps thinking that we owe them the incentive because it's a practice that's practiced all across our state. So to compete, and in order to bring in good projects, a lot of times all we can do is add on incentives.
Okay, Bernard?
See, I fully support incentive because, in my opinion, first of all, incentive, and let me be clear, I'm referring to both small businesses and large businesses. Incentive lets the business know that the city is there to support you, first of all. And I'm not just looking at the business itself. I'm looking at the surrounding businesses that may grow and enhance because of the opening of one business that has received incentive from the city. So it will increase the budget of our city. It will make our city better, and it may be the difference between a good and a great neighborhood. Thank you.
And now another question from Dave Perry.
And Debbie, I'm going to apologize in advance for stepping on your final question
That's
there,
okay.
and I'm going to propose one for you there. In the meantime, though, I'm going to help both of your phones ring, and I wanted to talk to you, both of you, to talk about how you feel about the city's pit bull ordinance that's been in effect for several years and has been spread across the metro area. There's word that some of the cities may be relenting on that now and peeling back on pit bulls, especially in light of several veterans groups that have raised the issue, saying that, that these dogs are especially meaningful to them, and there's some federal legislation that may conflict with local bills like the one that the city of Aurora has. Rini, do you want to start with how you feel about pit bulls now?
Well, sure I will. As you know, I actually supported the pit bulls and tried to make changes and make it better, because I think that just like people, there's good animals and bad animals, and it's how you treat them that creates the type of animal you have. If you abuse it, of course, it's mean. So I don't think it's particularly the pit bull itself that is to be hated or not liked. It's the way people treat the animal that causes the animal to react and be bad.
So it sounds like you would be in favor of either repealing the city ordinance or at least revisiting it and determining.
I would be in favor of revisiting it, yes.
Okay. Bernard?
I would be not only in favor of revisiting it, but repealing it, because as Rainey mentioned, the animal is not the one. The person that you hold accountable are the owners that may have left a gate open, that may not have chained their dogs properly. And with the veteran groups, I mean, yeah, I'm a son of a veteran. I'm a veteran. My son's in the military. If the animals, the pit bull in particular, is a companion animal, first of all, we need to make sure that we have adequate places to train the animals to become companion animals, and to make sure that the general public is aware of all the rules and practices in owning animals, not just pit bulls. And once we do that, that's a problem that should go away by itself.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, did you have a follow-up, or shall we move on to the next question?
I can take one more question here. I'm curious because both of you have so much experience with the community and public schools that you see the need of a serious cooperation among city, state, and county resources for a population that in a lot of places is seriously underprivileged. And I wonder, with that in mind, how you feel about the city-county proposition for Aurora, that if Aurora were to become its own city-county, the chances would be that it would have more power in marshaling those resources in the places that it sees best fit. Bernard, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Again, quick question. I believe that where all of this starts is in making sure that the residents of our city are fully aware, first of all the differences that will occur between where we are now and where we will be if we become a city and county. And by doing that, then we would have support of the citizens, because there would be no surprise coming to them, oh, we're now a city and county, so therefore we're going to need more tax from you. We need to make sure we are proactive in educating the residents all that comes with being a city and county, negatives and positives, and go with what the residents want, not just city council. We are here for the people. Thank you.
I'm going to pin you down just a little bit more there. That are you saying that you support the idea of a city-county of Aurora, or that you think that there's another way around it, that just better cooperation between the existing government structure is sufficient?
I support the idea, but first we have to make sure we're ready for that idea.
Okay.
We cannot just talk about it and think it's going to happen on its own. We've got lots of work to do prior to that becoming reality.
Okay, thanks. Rini?
Well, first of all, Dave, if we are not planning to make services better, why would we even consider it, is my take.
Do you think it's possible, though, with the city, a
So
city-county
if-
structure, that it would improve the delivery of services?
After the study is done, if we can't see a way that we would improve the sheriff's department, the social services department, and so forth, why would we want to even take that on? I mean, the cost of building a jail facility, bringing on a sheriff's department, taking on the social services and housing them and paying for all those employees is quite a bit for us to take on. And if we're not doing it to make it better or to give a better service to people, why would we even bother?
So if the study says yes and your constituents say yes, then you say yes?
If the study comes back and it proves that it would improve our services, yes, I would.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our final question this evening will come from Aaron Cole.
Thanks. Switching gears, I guess. Something that's recently come up is the city has talked about a change in their tap fee structure, as far as maybe reducing some of the residential tap fees while making a different scale for industrial users. And Ward 2 is kind of an interesting mix of, you've got both going on up there. I guess the first question is do you support the revised tap fee structure? If so, why? And if not, why not? Bernard, do you want to start?
You know, reducing any money coming out of the citizen's pocket is a great thing. You know, and we have to understand, first of all, the difference between the residents and the commercial that you mentioned, that if obviously the commercial is, you know, going to have more reasons for, you know, paying fees or whatever, that, you know, I'm for a project such as that, but again, it has to be done properly. I would like to see better study as to what would be the outcome of it and how would the residents best benefit if that should take place.
Rini?
The reason that we raised the tap fees to begin with was because of the climbing increases on Aurora customers' water bills and the cost of the Prairie Waters project. And the final payment doesn't come due till 2020. So no, I wouldn't be in support of what's coming. I would be a no vote.
Okay. A follow-up question, I guess, is to the larger issue of water and Aurora. Specifically, you touched on the Prairie Waters project there, but also the city's lease of some of its water to bottling and fracking has come up a couple of times. So I guess the bigger question is what should the city do with its water, and as it affects residents, with watering restrictions and whatnot. What's your take on all of this?
Well, see, the city has various kinds of contracts with people that we sell water to. Some contracts are negotiable versus some are set for long periods of times and are non-negotiable. And the ones that are, the city often look at those to see how they could maybe put out more water to an organization and not mess with what the residents use. As far as fracking, that's a topic that I feel, a lot more safety measures should be in place before we would even entertain fracking, because that's something that uses a large amount of water. You're talking about drilling 1 mile straight into the earth, and to keep those drills well lubricated takes a lot of water. And the water department is the only department in the city that has a very good revenue source. And they've even loaned the city money at times. So although I'm in favor of the water department continuing to do what it does, we cannot just keep restricting the citizens from using water and charging them more for water all within the same year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rainey?
I'm concerned with any continuing long-term agreement of selling our water. And you brought up Niagara Water Bottling Company. That's something I voted against. I would have rather they have not came here. That's my personal take. Our water is for Aurora citizens. If we have an excess of water, I wouldn't be opposed to a one-time sale where they come, they get it, and they leave. And if we have excess, they come, they get it, they leave. And it's not a continual contract. That's how I would support selling water.
Thank you.
We did that once with Nestea.
Thank you, candidates. This concludes the question and answer portion of this evening's forum. You will now each have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement, beginning with Bernard Celestin.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of Ward 2 and you great folks in the audience, what I bring to the city, what I've continuously brought forth in this city for the last 32 years that I've lived here, is a very proactive, aggressive, positive attitude towards my city, and making sure that this is a city that stands on its own, that is well respected, the citizens are well cared for. So I am here tonight not only to answer the questions, but to ask you for your vote. Support me during this campaign and elect me into office, because I plan on not just sitting back and waiting for things to happen, but to go out and work with the residents of the ward and make sure that the residents are heard and they are fully aware of what goes on in these chambers and what their city council person is doing for them. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Rennie Peterson.
First of all, I just want to thank the voters out there for my last 2 terms. I've really enjoyed it immensely. This has been my only job for the last 2 years, so I have a lot of time to give to it. I always listen to the concerns of the constituents. I vote on my conscience based on the facts at hand and what I feel is right, always considering the future ramifications. I practice the City of Aurora's 4 core values of integrity, respect, professionalism, and customer service. I'm always looking to ensure the protection of our most valuable resource, our water. And I'm also very concerned and keep a watch on Buckley, as they are a $1 billion economic engine to the city of Aurora, bringing over 12,000 12,000 workers from Aurora, and I'm also excited to have Fitzsimmons Life Science Center here, bringing 15,000 jobs. So anyway, I'd just like to ask you to continue supporting me, and I would love to complete my final term with you as your council member. Thank you.
Once more, thank you, candidates, for your participation in tonight's forum. And a special thank you to our media representatives from the Aurora Sentinel and for their participation. I would also like to thank Channel 8 for their coverage of this forum. We would like to remind our voters and our viewers that this forum, along with our other forums, will be repeated here on Channel 8 throughout the month of October up to Election Day. Schedules can be found in the Aurora Sentinel or at auroragov.org/Aurora8. The forums will also be available on the web for viewing at your convenience on the Aurora YouTube channel at youtube.com/the Aurora channel. We encourage all voters to know the candidates and to know the issues, and to be sure to exercise your right to vote and to be heard and cast your vote at election time this year. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.